Pickle, it's Tuesday.
TUESWAYS.
That is when we get on the phone and we call our friend, the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer, the voice of the Texas Longhorns, the host of the Craig Way Show on AM 1300 The Zone in Austin. It's our friend, Craig Way. Craig, one question and one question only. How was your birthday?
It was dense, and what I mean by that is it had a lot to it, from the football game itself on Saturday to a full meal on Sunday, complemented by Linda making me her devil's food cake that contains Guinness Stout in it. It makes for a very dense cake.
Nice.
So yes, it was a dense birthday. Not dense in terms of lack of intelligence, although folks can draw their own conclusions there. But it was fun.
Man, I'm not much of a sweets person, but you might have just got me with
I was
the
going to
cake.
say, no, look, you don't mess with Linda.
Yeah.
Like, Linda's the way you want on your side.
That sounds like it rules.
Craig, we can take relief. Craig, the week 4 of the Texas high school football season has come and gone. One of the conclusions that I drew from week 4 was that this was a week where a lot of teams we don't normally get a ton of data points on, we got really good data on. And I think largely in the positive. Teams like Gunner, teams like Newton, teams like, I would say, Albany to a certain extent with their win over Hawley. Mart, a big win over Centerville. When you take a look at the landscape coming out of week 4 of the Texas high school football season, I'm interested in what your big takeaways were after the action.
I think probably as much as anything is that a lot of the schools that we thought would deliver, we just didn't know how they would deliver. And like you said, the Gunner Brock thing was nothing short of most impressive in the way that Gunner went about its business against a good team from up a division. We've learned about Gunner that doesn't necessarily matter that much. And we've learned that about Mart as well with what they did in their game against Centerville. So there's certain programs that Refugio is another one that can step up against a team from a higher division or even a higher classification and deliver. So those things, the fact that they can do it impressively, I think is what stood out to me probably about as much as anything. We had some a few eyebrow raisers, but by and large, it was a week that delivered what we thought it probably would.
So now it's on to week 5 of the Texas high school football season, and there's, I know, one big game down there in Austin that everybody's got their eye on, and it's the Battle of the Lakes, a top 10 matchup in the Austin area between Westlake and Lake Travis. Matt Stepp and I were discussing this last night on our podcast, which you can listen to on texasfootball.com, about how this particular, despite it being a top 10 matchup, and despite it being a matchup of unbeaten teams and rivals, this year's game, from where we sit, doesn't have the same kind of buzz and electricity that it normally does going into the Battle of the Lakes. Would you agree with that assessment that this is a little bit more of a little bit more, I don't want to say ho-hum because it's still a huge game, but a little bit more downplayed right now? And also, do you have any sort of idea as to why you think that may be the case?
Yes, and yes, across the board. I agree with you and Matt on this. I think part of the reason I think that this particular Battle of Lakes, and again, folks can look at it and say, wait a minute, doesn't this check all the boxes? It's 2 traditional powers, 2 unbeaten teams, and they're arch rivals. Why would that not drive all kinds of buzz? You look at what Jerry Forrest says in the computer. I think Westlake's favored by 6 or something like that. So it's like, why wouldn't it check the boxes? Well, here's some supplementary reasons I'll give you. One, how much do we really know about them? Both have, I would say, submit to you one impressive win. Westlake beating what's turning out to be a pretty good Ridge Point team, I think, in week 1 and doing it on the road. And Lake Travis knocking off, I think, a pretty good Steel team. Otherwise, it was teams they were probably supposed to beat and beat handily. So there's that. So there's something to be said also for the downplay of an arch rivalry game that is very early in district play. Because we're still kind of in the information gathering stage on a lot of teams. And we prefer our hated bloodbath arch rivalry games to be late in the season, don't we? If not the last weekend, certainly near the end. And it used to be that way with Westlake and Lake Travis. Now they've been playing early in district play. All right, so and if you talk to the coaches, if you talk to Tony Salazar, and if you talk to Hank Carter, they will both tell you that's probably the way they like it, because whoever takes the loss out of this thing still has plenty of recovery time and can kind of gather momentum before you get toward the postseason anyway. So there's that. I'll give you another outside the box reason. There's a college football team in this town that's doing really well. And that it's the first time that Texas has been 3-0 in 11 years. They haven't been 3-0 since 2012. So a lot of what might be casual fan interest that would gravitate over to it over toward a Westlake Lake Travis matchup might be a little more distracted than normal because the local college team's doing well. So I think all of it. There's no one overriding factor. Here's the reason why this game still doesn't carry quite as much buzz as it has in some recent. But I think all of those things together, and then it was like, oh yeah, this week is Battle for the Lakes. It's that kind of response. Not that it's a negative. It's just kind of like, I've been thinking about some other things, and they haven't, captured my attention as much as they normally do. And now there's this game. But I think it will ratchet up, certainly as this week progresses leading up to the game itself, which I do think could be a really good game.
I thought the college team you were referring to was the Pirates of Southwestern, who are off to a tough start, but we're going to rally. We're going to rally here in Georgetown.
I agree. I agree.
Craig Way, the Texas High School Hall of Famer, join us here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation, #TF Today. All right, there is a result from last week that I want to ask you about, because I think it has it's boggled my mind for now about 3 days running. Craig Way, what do you make of Leander Rouse 28, Liberty Hill 17? Because I have run it through my brain about 60 different ways, and I don't know what to make of that particular result.
I think Josh Mann was able to use Liberty Hill's strength against them, and that is a running clock, and make it more difficult with the way that Liberty Hill runs the ball. And if you can limit some possessions and get a few stops, and meanwhile have your own offense connect, and Liberty Hill, as we've seen, gives up points. They've given up points even in victories. So if you can do that, then you have a chance to get them on the ropes. It certainly doesn't mean Coach Walker's team is not going to be up to snuff this year. I do think they will. But I think those were the things that stood out to me about what Rouse achieved in that game. I was pretty impressed with what he did in terms of their defensive plan. And if you can get a couple of stops with what you're going with that, I think you've got a chance to make a statement, and I think that's what they did.
Yeah, Liberty Hill might be the only team in America that runs the slot T that we're like, yeah, you really got to shorten the game against those guys. Don't let them on the field.
You just got to make sure you get some stops. That's the thing. Some empty possessions. It might be, Tep, a 4.5, 5 minute drive. But if they come away empty-handed, then they've accomplished nothing, and they've shrunk the game a little bit.
All right, Craig, it's time for the meanest thing we do to each other each week, and that is to make you teleport to a game. Now, I'm going to take the obvious one off of the board. Lake Travis and Westlake, I think, is the obvious choice. We all acknowledge it. There's that. I'm going to take that off the board. I'm going to give you 3 games. You can teleport to one of them this week. You can either teleport to the reservation, as they call it in Port Neches, as Fort Bend Marshall visits Port Neches Groves in a District 9 5A Division II opener. You can teleport to, let's say, Waxahachie for DeSoto and Waxahachie in an 11-6A game, a matchup of unbeatens. Or you can teleport to Edinburgh for PSJA North unbeaten taking on Edinburgh Vela unbeaten. Which of those 3 places are you teleporting to?
Yeah, this is one of those weeks where you are mean.
I know, tough.
That's I think probably one of the last. I put it this way, for me, it's got to be a show me week for Waxahachie, and they did do some showing last week of what they did against Cedar Hill, but they're going to have to show more in order to take out a DeSoto team that, by the way, is a bit banged up. So they're going to have to, take full advantage of that. But for me, probably I'm going to go with PNG Fort Bend Marshall. This is another one where we're going to see just how good PNG is on the arrival of this game. I'm one of those people who thinks Fort Bend Marshall is good enough to be in Arlington in December. You know what? I say that almost every year. And some years they have been, and years like last year where they got knocked out after they beat PNG and got beat by them in the rematch thing. So I'm interested in seeing Fort Bend Marshall, Port Neches Groves, Roman numeral 3, since it was twice last year and the once this year, to see how it goes.
Finally, Craig, you're heading to Waco this week for Texas and Baylor. One of the casualties of Texas moving to the SEC is that this game is no longer going to be an annual occurrence. Now, I know you'll be doing plenty of driving through Waco still. You will still be spending plenty of time there in Central Texas, but are you going to miss going to Waco to watch Baylor in Texas?
I'll tell you one thing I'll miss. I'll miss not getting to call a game in that stadium, because it's a lot of fun to call a game in that stadium. Even in the old Floyd Casey Stadium, it was fun. Do you know this, Tep? This will be the first time in 20 years that Texas has played Baylor in Waco at night.
Really?
They have not played them in a night game in Waco since 2003. I went back and I checked through all of that. The 4 games they played at McLean were like 3 at 11 a.m. and 1 at 2:30. And that Ice Bowl game of 2013 when Baylor won the Big 12 championship when they beat Texas, that actually started at 2:30. It just seemed dark the whole day. And you have to go all the way back to 2003 to find a game in Waco where Texas and Baylor had an evening kickoff. That's how long ago it's been. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, I'll miss it. There's basketball still to come. Both the men's and women's teams will play in Baylor's new arena that'll open in January. But, yes, I will definitely miss it.
He's Craig Way. He's the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer. Joins us every Tuesday here on Texas Football Today. Hear him this afternoon on the Craig Way Show on AM 1300 The Zone there in Austin from 2 to 4. I'll be on with him at 3:20 if you just want more of this banter. But then see him on High School Scoreboard Live Friday night on Valley Sports Southwest, and then hear him on the call of Texas and Baylor on the radio. Craig, appreciate your time, my friend, and I will talk to you a little bit later.
Hey, and thanks to Pickle and Pickle Dad for tuning in and catching the game last Saturday night as unexpectedly adventurous as it was for 3 quarters. So, yeah, I got a text from her about that. So, thanks, Pickle Dad. Appreciate
we're sitting
that.
on the couch, and my dad goes, "Did he just text you back during the game?" I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah, that's the kind of relationship you have. Thanks, Craig.
All right, we'll see you.
There he goes, Craig Way, the Texas High School Hall of Famer and good personal friend of Ashley Pickle.
I'm proud of that.
I was going to say, I want you to imagine, go back before you started this job, and now Craig Way is texting you during Texas games.
I was 3 years old listening to him, for 3 or 4 years old, listening to him on the radio every time we would go down on the Texas games. It's wild.
Yeah, there you go.
It still doesn't sink in.
I know. But now you just text him during Texas and Wyoming.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for watching this clip here on YouTube. If you like this kind of stuff and you want more of it, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And remember, you can watch us live every weekday at noon at TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, or here on YouTube. And if you want more of the best coverage of football in the state of Texas, check out TexasFootball.com and become a Dave Campbell's Texas Football Insider at TexasFootball.com/subscribe.